Jesus spoke about the prophets looking forward to his day. We read in Luke chapter 10, verse 24, that Jesus said to his disciples, "For I tell you that many prophets and kings have desired to see those things which ye see, and have not seen them, and to hear those things which ye hear, and have not heard them." And we have examples of this, right? You can look over in Daniel chapter 12. And in Daniel chapter 12, verse 8, Daniel asks, "What shall be the end of these things?" He wanted to get more specifics about exactly how these things would happen. Few had put the pieces together. When Jesus was born, very few understood that he was going to be born then. When Jesus was suffering, few understood that suffering and sacrifice had to come before the glory. And those are the two key things that Peter talks about that people struggle to understand: the sufferings of Christ and the glory that should follow. Even the disciples, even Peter, struggled to understand this. Peter even tried to prevent the sufferings of Christ. It wasn't until after the resurrection they fully embraced that full work of the Messiah. And that gets to our third point. Using some biblical common sense here, we can see how it all fits together. We have the blessing of hindsight. The fact that Jesus had to suffer is not a mystery to us. We can read Isaiah, we can read Psalms, and marvel at the detail and the way they foretold what would happen to Jesus. And as we'll see later in our fourth class together, Peter learned this too eventually. But also, it's through the benefit of hindsight that Jesus and his apostles are drawing our eyes to these passages and explaining what this all means. So this is a cause for joy. The understanding we've been blessed with is special. It's precious. The prophets spoke generations ago for our benefit. Sometimes it might be easy to look back on the days of direct revelation and miracles and think, only if I lived back then things would have been so much more clear. Only if I lived back in the days of the prophets hearing directly from God, I would understand God's plan better for my life. But here we see we're not forgotten. Those prophecies written down are for our benefit, so we can look back and see the work of God through his Son and be amazed. In fact, the prophets in some ways long to be in our day and see the fulfillment that they spoke of. Even the angels rejoice to see all the pieces come together. Think of that announcement to the shepherds on the night of Jesus' birth. "I bring you good tidings of great joy." Knowing of this great salvation should increase our joy, and looking into the next section, which will begin tomorrow, inspire us to action. And to do that, in 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 13 through chapter 2 and verse 10, Peter is going to pull on imagery of Israel in the wilderness, which will be the subject that we'll consider tomorrow, God willing. So as we leave this second section of Peter's letter, let's remember three things: that God in his mercy gives us a new birth, so we might grow and join a new family; that though trials will come, God is aware and they are for our benefit; and that our hope is sure and unique, which gives us cause for great joy.
Thank you so much, Brother Allen. It's not easy to teach remotely, so greatly appreciate your willingness to share your studies with us still. So a few quick announcements before we break for lunch and close in prayer. First off, the cards are over here on this table up front. Please take the time to sign them. We don't want to send those cards empty, so